Welcome to the second video in Keeping Forest Strategy Spotlight series. I'm Laura Calandrella, and we're counting down to the end of the year with the great work that our partnership has done in 2023. If you missed our first episode on the social network analysis, be sure to visit the News and Perspectives page on our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, on to today's spotlight. I would like to welcome Dr. Lauren Watkins from Impact by Design. Impact by Design is a social science consulting firm, and Lauren is joining us today as a consultant to our emerging market strategy team. Our emerging market strategy team is focused on creating payment for ecosystem services markets. And specifically, Lauren is helping us to pilot work in the Saluda River Basin in South Carolina, where we're asking the question, what type of market solution or market solutions will motivate conservation actions to keep forests as forests? So welcome, Lauren. Really great to have you here today.
Thank you. Excited to join you.
So Lauren, I've introduced a little bit about you and Impact by Design, but will you say a little bit more about who you are and how you come to this work?
Sure. So I'm a psychologist who specializes in environmental psychology, and I'm the principal of social science and research for Impact by Design, which, as you mentioned, is a nonprofit consulting firm. And we work at the intersection of people, wildlife, the environment to help foster behavior change or develop strategies to solve complex environmental problems, usually. So my background was first with the Florida Park Service. I have a background in wildland firefighting, and I was a field biologist for a while. And then I fell in love with the people side of conservation and forestry. So I went to get my master's degree in environmental science and studied at the University of Florida at the School of Forest Resources and Conservation. And then I was with an organization called White Oak Conservation for about 5 years before coming to Impact by Design about 5 years ago, where I've been leading up initiatives like this one with Keeping Forests.
Fantastic. I feel very lucky that I stumbled not only upon Impact by Design, but that we get to have your expertise as part of the project, especially given that you have such a deep background in the South. You're also a native of Aiken, South Carolina. Is that correct?
Anderson, South Carolina, but my great-grandma lived in Aiken, yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, you are piloting a project with us that has a lot of words to it. It's called community-based social marketing. And for those of us who don't know what that is, can you explain what community-based social marketing is and what's important about it when we're talking about complex environmental issues?
Yeah, definitely. So community-based social marketing is an approach that's used in many different fields: public health, safety, the environment, and the goal is to foster sustainable behavior change in a way that's not top-down. So the idea is to meet people where they are by understanding the whole system in which they're existing, what barriers are they facing to more sustainable behaviors, or what would motivate them. And the idea is to use engaging with the community, what we learn, to co-create solutions together instead of taking more of a top-down or paternalistic approach to telling people what to do. Instead, it's engaging them to figure out solutions together. And I think that's what makes it so much more powerful and useful than education and awareness raising alone, because it takes that but goes a step further.
So how is it different than education and awareness raising?
Yeah, so sharing information and raising awareness or educating people is always a critical step. But it's usually kind of the first step in behavior change, because people need to know what it is that you want them to do. But community-based social marketing takes it further than that. So before you even get to raising awareness or sharing messages among a community or group of people who you're trying to engage with, it's about engaging them first. So figuring out what messages will resonate with them, what they value, what they care about, so we can figure out who they listen to and where to share the educational messages or the information or the awareness. And then after that, it also takes it a step further to trying to motivate people by removing barriers that they're experiencing to engaging in sustainable behavior. So it goes a lot more beyond just, here's the thing you need to know, and helping them figure out what to do in a way that aligns with their values, what they care about, their lifestyle, and their culture, without trying to impose our values on them.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is very, very common in our community is that if only people understood how important this is from our lens and our perspective, or if we just tell them what to do from our lens and our perspective, then they'll just do that. And I was lucky to come across community-based social marketing really early in my career. It was actually the first job that I had out of college, and between undergraduate and graduate school, I worked with an organization that really focused on this. So I was able to see how different it was when you are coming at it from the perspective of conservation is about people, and it's about really speaking to their values. What does the community value? And we're trying to do this across the entire Southeast. And so there's an approach that you take that is almost more important than the actual campaign that itself. And I think that that's something that's unique about Impact by Design. Because you do this all over the world, so what's the difference between the process, right, and then the campaign itself?
Yeah, so I think one thing that makes us a lot different is that we have a really deep background in needs assessments with communities, community engagement, but also well thought out and rigorous social science research to inform initiatives like this. So we're one of the few organizations that takes community-based social marketing and behavioral science and applies it in conservation and stewardship of natural resources, because a lot of these tools aren't brand new, but they've been used in public health more, which is very research-driven. So we thought, why don't we take the same exact approach, but to the environment and environmental issues? So we work with our partners to help them really get to know the community and do listening sessions, focus groups, to map out who are the people in a system that have the power and those who don't, people who are marginalized, and making sure that no one gets left behind when we're thinking about trying to foster behaviors that are meant to benefit an entire community or system. So we focus really, really heavily on that co-creation piece from day one, instead of let's ideate, figure out what we're going to do, and then go see what the community thinks. It's more of let's bring them in as early as possible to test our assumptions, make sure we're not wasting time with ideas that might not land with the community. And like you said, I've tried this all over the world, I kind of said this in another video with Keeping Forests, from Saudi Arabia to South Carolina, and people are people no matter where in the world we are. We have certain things in common, and there's certain ethical ways we want to approach work when we're trying to help people adopt new behaviors or solutions. And no matter where we are in the world, we believe this is the process that works best, of from day one thinking about the people-centered approach, not the problem-centered approach.
Yeah, we're learning so much from you. I am very curious, though. I follow you on Instagram, so I get to see all of the various travels that you do. So I know you have a lot of experience in this, and you get to do this in many places. What's been your favorite campaign that you've worked on?
Ooh, that I'm lucky enough. They're all my favorite. That's what I want to say to all the clients out there that might see this video. But I really love the ones that take me to a brand new culture that I get to experience, not only the universal ways that people are people, but also all the nuances that happen in a culture. So one of my favorites that I've been working on for a long time is a composting campaign to conserve riverine forests in Tanzania, specifically Western Tanzania. And that one's with the Jane Goodall Institute, and we realized there was a lot of deforestation happening. We worked for a while with the communities to figure out why. Found out it was just that their soil was just tired, and they were starting new farms and forests where the soil is healthier. So we collaborated with them to create a composting campaign that's been going on for almost 6 years now. And that one's just really cool to see, because so many of the women just adopted that behavior and those solutions and just started new businesses and were able to change their lives and their children's lives just by something that was free that they could do, that's easy and right around them. So that one gave me the most hope, that even though it was a really gnarly problem, we were able to figure it out and come up with something really, really meaningful for the community that they are now adopting and have taken on themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? That deforestation, a solution to deforestation was actually looking at composting. Probably not a solution that we as conservationists would have come in, or we that think about forest markets would have come in and found or determined. And then also looking at the group that really could move things forward, which was women. And I love that, because you are really showing in this example the way that the solutions have come from the community themselves, and then why they have taken hold and continue to be sustainable. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in the Saluda River Basin. So how are we using this same model in the Saluda River Basin with keeping forests objectives?
Sure. So we started out with kind of a core team, yourself, me, a few others, mapping out the problem. All of my clients and partners come to the table with, here's the problem and what we want to do about it. But you all went along with the journey with me and allowed me to just start at ground zero and really map out everything that could be leading to the forest loss in this particular area. And so once we did that, to help me not only see the system through your eyes, but also to think about all the different community members that are engaged in the system that we might want to include along this way, along this process. So we did that, and then we came together for a 3-day workshop in Greenville, South Carolina. And one part of that workshop that I thought was really meaningful for me and the attendees was inviting members of the community based on that problem we mapped out, different kinds of people that are either affecting that system or being affected by it. And we had a listening session. We let them talk, we asked them questions, we tested some of our assumptions. And I think that was really powerful to hear their lived experience with the problem and not just what we know about what it means for the watershed or biodiversity or clean water, but just what it means to their day-to-day lives and their families. So that was really interesting to me. So from there, we took what we learned and all the questions that stirred up for us too, and we're starting to put together what I call a research plan. So this is also part of community engagement, where it'll include questions we want to ask key players. We'll do focus groups, surveys, different kinds of efforts to test ideas and see what people are thinking about how to solve this problem in the Saluda River Basin. So we're now working with the team to finalize what we want to learn and who we want to learn it from, and then I'll get out there in the field in South Carolina and start answering some of these questions and meeting with community members again.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very powerful experience for me to be part of the community member, really conversation more than anything. And I was part of the group. You split us at Keeping Forests into groups with the stakeholders, with the community, and I was with the group that represented forest landowners. And one of the powerful things, just in a few hours, one of the powerful things that came out was I think I might have asked this question. I said, it sounds like there's a lot of grief there. And just the way that opened them up, me just acknowledging and recognizing that there was grief, because it was coming out as anger, and just giving them the doorway to say, yes, there's grief here. They're feeling that loss very strongly. As landowners, they're feeling the loss, not just of, their forests in particular, but seeing the whole region develop and feeling a little bit at a loss, not knowing exactly what to do. And I think they were really glad to have us there to be able to ask those questions, and at least that there was someone that was taking deeper interest in it. And I think that fosters a lot of buy-in as part of the process, and something that no matter where we're doing, whether it's with our emerging market strategies or with our regenerative forest product strategies, just really coming in and recognizing who is there and who we're working with, because Keeping Forests, the idea is to support private landowners. So I appreciate that was part of the process, and thank you for creating such an open and safe space for our stakeholders to come in and talk.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I heard a lot of grief too, and a lot of frustration, but also one thing that gave me hope, because when we're doing these kinds of things, we're trying to learn what values can we tap into and what feelings and emotions to get other people in the community on board with these ideas or this process. And I heard a lot of pride also in their voices. So in the tables I was in. And so there's a lot of pride for their region and their natural resources and their culture. And so that gave me hope that we can find something that, even if the community is a little divided about what to do, there's something that I know they have in common, being from that region myself, that we can tap into to help continue to build that trust and hopefully get people on board with trying new things to solve these problems, because it's a complex problem that's happening really fast. And I venture to guess there's a lot of the community members that don't even realize, it's kind of like that anecdote about putting a frog in boiling water, and then all of a sudden, this problem's going to be popping up in front of everybody so vividly. So I think it's great that we were building trust with some select community members so they can help bring more people to the table to see that they can speak for us, that we have good intentions, and we're trying not to impose something on them, but work together to figure this out as fast as we can.
Yeah. One of our partners is the South Carolina Forestry Commission, and they were the ones that really we've partnered with to think about a community-based social marketing campaign specifically in Saluda River Basin, with the idea that we can learn what we learned there and scale it with campaigns across the Southeast. When we started this conversation with the South Carolina Forestry Commission, the region was in a very different place. Within the last year and a half or so, the closure of mills has drastically affected the economy there. And so I think with us at Keeping Forest, we came in with the lens of, okay, we want to test and likely will still continue to test the payment for ecosystem services solutions. However, what were some of the key takeaways that you were seeing, either for yourself or even recognizing in us as we walked away from that meeting in Greenville in June?
Oh, that's a good question. There were so many aha moments and key takeaways. I think that some of the things that were important to note are that people, they understand that development and growth is important so that their community is not left behind. But what that looks like is still really unclear, and how to move forward in a way that doesn't create a ghost town or create a community that doesn't look like the one that they've chose to live in and raise children in for generations, right? So there was a lot of, we know growth needs to happen, but the way it's happening now feels like it's taking the soul of our community away. And so that was a big key takeaway for me, of trying to think about how do people think about growth and development as it's happening all around them, and how to find a way to feel like they're part of it and it's not just happening to them. That was a really big key takeaway for me, because I think there's a sense that there's nothing that they can do, which is really not the case. It's just, how do we figure out what can be done? And then there were other solutions that popped up that we hadn't really thought about, that we may or may not explore, that were surprising, realizing, and this is something I knew personally from my own family, but there's a big lack of succession planning and knowing what to do with land when it's passed from one generation to another, especially if the people don't necessarily live in the area anymore. And then also, there are just so many complex reasons besides the mills closing, and besides just development, that people may need to sell their land. So for me, it was ground truthing some of the things that we thought about, but there were a lot of aha moments for me about where and why people are moving into this area, what people that are choosing to stay there want to see in the future. And yeah, just the key takeaway for me too is that they really enjoy being heard, which gives me hope for getting back out in the community and seeing what else people out there are thinking.
Yeah. I think it's important what you just pointed to, that it's not just development, right? And it's not just lack of succession planning, that there's a range of reasons that somebody may keep or sell their land. And that's what's very interesting to me about the social science aspect of this, is I think there are reasons that we commonly hold, and that we know from data and research of why people are selling the land and what's happening in the Southeast in general. But that's where community-based social marketing really puts a finer point on the solutions that we have access to, is because we don't know necessarily, not on a person by person basis, but there may be some cultural things that are affecting a particular community that we may not be aware of. And so this is a chance to really explore that. I think it's important to mention too that we didn't just talk to landowners, that we talked to developers, we talked to realtors, and I guess you would call these our friendly realtors and developers. These were our allies who really have been part of the community as well. And so they're very important in developing the solutions, or at least getting us to the place where we know what the next step is in the research plan. And to me, that holistic view, bringing all of those perspectives to the table, I'm grateful for your process and your work, and for doing that and pulling us through to this process.
Thanks. I was so grateful for their willingness to go along, because they really didn't know what they were getting into, but I think it went really well, and I think it created a really great foundation for us to test our assumptions and then figure out what else we want to explore. And they were just so wonderful in providing really unfiltered feedback, and I think they'll be great allies. I encourage other people to do the same when you're thinking about developing programs. Starting with a small group and letting them help speak for you. That's the social part in community-based social marketing, is that diffusion of ideas and trust and camaraderie and support from one person to another, not social marketing in the social media sense, but from peer-to-peer communication through people they trust, because that's how change really happens. And that's why you want to start as soon as you can. Even if it's a small group of allies, it'll grow from there. There'll be a ripple effect in this Little River Basin. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? What are you excited about as our next steps, and what are those next steps?
Yeah, so the most immediate next step is just finalizing what we want to learn. So it's kind of like a roadmap to the community engagement and answering the questions that the community members have, that we have. Because if you don't have a plan, you don't know when you're going to get there to the end, right? So that plan is really important. So we're keeping track of what we want to learn. Once that's done, once we're sure about what we're going to go explore, I'll get out there and put together a plan for engaging with the community members, whether it's in-person events or focus groups or surveys. We'll go ahead and start reaching out to community members. And this is an iterative process. So we'll have sort of a first wave of what we want to learn. Think about what I'm hearing and adjust before we complete the process, because there's going to be many aha moments. I've done this for years all over the world, and you always, you don't know what you don't know. So you're out there, you're exploring, somebody throws out a new idea, and you want to start integrating that into your solution search. So it's kind of like a fun Easter egg hunt or hide and seek of ideas out in the community to see what people are experiencing, what they're thinking about. Once we collect all of the data and we've engaged with the community to a certain extent, we'll come together with the working group and think about, okay, what will a community-based social marketing pilot look like? What images will we use? What messages? How are we going to spread these messages? Through who? Would it be religious leaders, community leaders, billboards, sporting events? It just depends on what we're finding out in the community and how people like to get information. And what barriers can we remove for them? We'll put together a whole plan for a pilot. And the idea is to test those ideas, again, letting people know what's coming, what we're going to do, make sure that they like everything from the colors to the tone of the words we're using, and then launch at a small scale, see what happens, learn from it. And then the goal is really to adapt it and scale it up, not only in this community, but also in the Southeast.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what those campaigns look like. That I think is what people imagine when we're talking about education and outreach, right? We want to jump straight to what is the campaign, what are the images, how are we going to talk to people? And you've already said a few things that make me really curious. Is one, tapping into that Southern pride, tapping into sports, right? There's so many things that are very culturally embedded, and obviously we don't know what the solutions or the campaigns will look like, but it's fun to imagine. And as I think about the conversations that you will get to have and then bring back to us with the emerging markets team or with Keeping Forest, then we get to dive into really seeing that pilot come to life. And so all of this is, like you said, iterative. We are expecting that we will have a campaign designed and then ready to launch probably late Q1, early Q2 of 2024. So for those of you out there that are excited about seeing what this work looks like, or are wanting to know how you might be able to apply some of the principles or lessons learned from this work, please stay tuned. If you're not joined to our newsletter, you can join that on our website at keepingforest.org. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today. I am thrilled to be able to work with you. I think I might have said this at the beginning, but it's a value that I know that you and I share, which is conservation is about people. Really, all of the things that we're doing is about people. And so to have this social science be part of our work is very, very meaningful. And glad you're along for the ride.
Thank you. I'm honored to be along for the ride, and I'm excited to see where it goes.